As the whole world watches the brand new mystery recipe for disaster brew in the Middle Eastern kitchen, another battle for survival appears to have begun on the PR front. The opponents are the political heavyweight survival champion Benjamin Netanyahu in the Israeli corner, and the current holder of the title President of the United States, Joe Biden, in the corner of the Stars and Stripes. As a reminder, after the horrific events of October 7, 2023, Mr. Biden immediately traveled to Israel, where he declared the unequivocal support of the USA for their greatest ally, which appeared to give Mr. Netanyahu a carte blanche in regards to the Hamas-Gaza problem. The USA went as far as mobilizing 2 aircraft carrier groups and deploying them into the eastern Mediterranean. Judging by their latest rhetoric, however, it appears that they now believe these actions have been premature, and there are good reasons for this. The overwhelming ruthlessness and the flagrant disregard for civilian life that was demonstrated by the Israeli military formed a most extraordinary coalition of nations who usually are at odds with each other. This coalition is currently actively applying pressure on both the USA and Israel to cease hostilities and begin negotiations. The conflict is also provoking a huge reaction among the American public, with many voices rising up demanding a ceasefire, a situation which the American elites clearly did not anticipate, and from the looks of it don't even know how to react to it. Understandable, really. Declaring support for Israel was a winning strategy for so many years, and suddenly it fails. People are shocked, utterly dismayed. Of course nobody knows what to do. And all of this with the American presidential election on the horizon. Currently, the president is not showing any desire to back out of the race, so losing support from a large number of voters is not something that he can afford without running the risk of losing swing states like Michigan. Taking this into account, it is easy to understand why the White House is now starting to adopt a more neutral stance. Even the likes of Hillary Clinton and Lindsey Graham are starting to show signs of restraint.
I will not vote for one dime for any country, including Israel, until we first secure our own border.
The media, for their part, appear to have been given instructions to start cranking out articles criticizing Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government. Definitive conclusions are of course impossible at the moment, but with the GOP probe starting to tighten the noose around Mr. Biden and his family, it is possible that remaining in power will become crucial to the survival of Team Biden in the near future. Under these circumstances, they will be ready to throw anybody under the bus, and as of now, the evidence suggests that the US administration is making moves to have the Israeli counterpart become their scapegoat for the tragedy which is currently playing out in the Holy Land. It all depends on how, if at all, the GOP intends to use the results of their investigation. As of now, they are still pulling their punches and keeping their aces hidden, but it is obvious that the prospects for President Biden's political future are becoming increasingly grim. His position, however, is almost enviable when compared to Prime Minister Netanyahu. In addition to the previous corruption charges, he is now facing mounting criticisms for allowing the events of October 7th to take place. By all accounts, he's now more vulnerable than ever, and many people believe that he will not be able to avoid jail. Mr. Netanyahu, for his part, is not showing any signs of trying to de-escalate the conflict, refusing to even consider any possibility of a ceasefire. Even suggestions of a humanitarian pause to secure the release of some hostages were not welcome. On the contrary, the Israeli PM seems to be dead set on pouring kerosene onto the fire of war, making inflammatory speeches with mention of religious prophecies, blaming the army for the October 7th attack, and sending more and more troops into Gaza City. Some people suggest that this is an indicator of desperation on Mr. Netanyahu's part. According to them, he is intentionally fanning the flames to pull more neighboring nations into the conflict, which will force the US to intervene militarily. The prolonged military conflict will allow him to remain in power as head of the emergency government. This will allow him to avoid prosecution and bide his time in order to gracefully maneuver out of the situation when an opportune moment presents itself. In other words, it's the Julius Caesar strategy to avoid being dragged into court. Probably the only strategy that he has left, really. We will have to see if it pays off for him. If World War III breaks out, I guess he won. In related news, playing out to the same tune of judicial battles, betrayals, and international intrigues, a boulder appears to have been lobbed into the Chinese garden from the trial of the former crypto tycoon Sam Bankman-Fried. Or Fried. I'm sorry, I don't really know how it's pronounced correctly, and neither does the internet, by the way. The two mentioned variants are the ones that are most commonly used. In the Russian-speaking corners of the net, though, he is more often referred to as simply Shoma. In case you don't know, up until November of 2022, Shoma was a genius visionary who stood at the helm of one of the most successful cryptocurrency exchange companies, FTX. And now he is a convict facing up to a century of jail time for fraud, money laundering, embezzlement of funds, concealment of profits, and illegal donations to the US political campaigns through straw donors. Unsurprisingly, following the advice of his lawyers, Shoma is actively denying everything. Unfortunately for him, as part of the judicial proceedings, the prosecution questioned Caroline Ellison, former CEO of Alameda Research, the sister company of FTX, and the first crypto trading firm that Shoma created. In addition to being the former CEO of one of his companies, Miss Ellison also happens to be Shoma's part-time girlfriend. Clearly, the former crypto giant has some very peculiar tastes when it comes to female companionship. According to some rumors, the two bonded over their mutual appreciation of Harry Potter books and highly addictive illegal substances. To be clear, not confirmed. What is 100% certain, though, is that when Shoma, like a true gentleman, offered his lady a place next to him in the dock, the spark between the crypto Romeo and Juliet suddenly faded, and so Miss Ellison quickly gave up everything she had on poor Shoma to the prosecution. According to her, in 2021, the dastardly Chinese government suddenly froze up to $1 billion worth of Alameda's accounts at the Chinese crypto exchanges, OKX and Huobi. As it turns out, this was all done as part of an investigation by the Chinese authorities, who began suspecting FTX of money laundering. As could be expected, Shoma reacted almost immediately and assembled a legal team in order to try and retrieve the funds. All negotiation attempts failed miserably, however, and Shoma was forced to resort to different tactics, attempting to retrieve the funds through incognito accounts using the IDs of, Thai prostitutes? Seriously, you cannot make this stuff up. Unfortunately, even representatives of one of the most ancient professions could not help retrieve the money, and so Mr. Bankman was allegedly forced to solve the situation with classic bribery, by sending up to $150 million to the Chinese officials. As of now, even though Shoma was found guilty as charged on all accounts, according to his defense lawyer, he maintains his innocence and will continue to vigorously fight the charges against him, which means that this story is far from over, and whether or not Mr. Bankman will in the end be freed or fried still remains to be seen. God knows, with all the shady political financing that was being done through FTX, it's also possible that some unexpected revelations may be made during the presidential race in regards to some parties. Either way, we will be keeping an eye on this story. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like.